So there's almost nothing that makes a day in the garden better than a load of plants. And you guys, I have the best load of plants to show you today. So earlier this year, Iseli Nursery reached out to me and said, we'd like to send you some plants if you'd be interested in trying them out. Why don't you send us a wish list? And I said, can do. So Iseli Nursery is a wholesale nursery in Oregon that produces some amazing evergreens, maples, and other trees and shrubs as well. And they're really a specialist grower. They really have it nailed, and they do a great job of offering varieties that you're probably not going to be able to find from most places. And the good news for us gardeners is that Iseli provides trees and shrubs to garden centers around the country, so we can all get our hands on these plants that would otherwise be quite difficult to find, I think. So long story short, Iseli sent out an incredible load of plants to a garden center near me. Shout out to Miners Garden Center for helping me out with this. And I went down there yesterday and picked them up, and I can't wait to show you these. So I was really quite fortunate to get some really sizable plants. So we did have somebody come with machinery to help us get these off of the giant U-Haul that we rented to haul these all around. So that was really helpful because these are too heavy to be moving around by hand. They're certainly getting them out of trucks by hand anyway. So this first one, which is truly outstanding, is part of Iseli's Pacific Rim collection, which is both has good cold tolerance but also good heat performance. And this one is called Origami, and this is a Korean maple cross. Korean maple, which is Acer pseudosibuldium, tend to be hardier, which is why I kind of aim for them. There have been years in which everybody's Japanese maples have been wiped out around here, and I don't really want to take the chance with that with a really lovely maple. So I really like these crosses, and this Korean maple tends to be hardier. This one is called Origami, and they're calling it a bush maple. It gets 8 by 8. It's hardy down to zone 5, and it is just absolutely adorable. Now they call this origami because they think that the leaves sort of look like origami when they're unfurling, and you can tell that this tree came from Oregon because we are starting to leaf out just a little, which is fun but not perfect because we have one very cold night coming. So I have actually placed these in the driveway for the time being because if need be, we can throw these on a dolly and we can slide these into the garage for a night. I will protect them either by doing that or by wrapping them, just because I don't want that new foliage to get damaged, because of course foliage here is not coming out yet. But you can see this is, I mean, it's been pruned a little bit, but you can see that this thing is a perfect ball. Now, of course, it's above my head here, but you know, once we get this box down, we're going to be 2 feet down. It's probably going to be 4 feet tall when I put it in the ground. I don't want to play favorites, but this might be my favorite. All right, this next one is also a Korean maple cross, and this is actually Northwind, which was the first member of Iseli's Northwind collection, which is again these maples that they're breeding for better heat tolerance or cold tolerance. And although like that Pacific Rim one, the origami that I just showed you, actually has both. This one in this Jack Frost collection specifically bred for better cold tolerance. Northwind has been around for a while actually, but I think it's finally to the point where it's in pretty wide distribution. So you should be able to find this, I would think, in most places. And Northwind gets 20 feet tall by 15 feet wide. And this is actually hardy down to zone 4, which is almost unheard of. Like, I don't think there is a Japanese maple that is hardy down to zone 4, and certainly not reliably hardy. So the leaves will come out red, and then they will turn, and then they will change to green, and then we're going to get really good fall color with a bright fall color. So this is beautiful. And what I didn't realize about Northwind was that it actually has quite beautiful bark on it, which is almost like yellow twig dogwood color, this kind of yellow bark on it. So that's another bonus. And then the last of the maples is this really beautiful one right here. This is Acer Shirazawam Aureum, which is a full moon maple. This is nothing new. This maple has been around for a long time, but they are beautiful. They get these really, I love the foliage on these full moon maples. I have another Shirazawa I always forget the last syllable of that, down closer to the garage, and that one is Moonrise. But this is a real beauty. Now, even though this tree is actually significantly, not significantly, but a little bit bigger than the Northwind right now, the Northwind will get larger. This one is 10 feet tall by 7 feet wide or so, hardy down to zone 5. This one is really anxious to jump out and start growing, but there is a sizable trunk on this thing. This one's going to be, I mean, all three of these are going to be spectacular. And interestingly enough, I thought I knew where each one of these was going, but now that they're here, I'm starting to rethink. We might change some things around and put one in a different place than the other, partly because I'm really taken with this origami, and I think that origami needs to be closer to where you're going to see it so you can really get in there and admire that, because it's quite cute. So this is probably the heaviest plant of all these that we got. This is an absolutely amazing blue globe spruce, but this is not any blue globe spruce. This is Iseli's introduction called Moonstone, which is part of their blues collection. I will show you how this compares to the blue globe spruce that I have in the garden already, which is just globosa, the dwarf blue globe spruce. But look at this thing. It gets, by the way, 2 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And by the way, always remember with, certainly with evergreen sizes, those are basically size in 10 years. So I'm going to say this plant is probably getting close to 10 years old, because this thing is certainly 2.5 feet wide, maybe 3. In addition to the icy blue color that this has, which is certainly better color than globosa, it also maintains this really nice tight bun habit. And you can always do some candle pruning on these things if you want to encourage that even more, but really this one is actually bred to be that way from the get-go. I just can't get over the size of this thing, and it's really beautiful. And this thing is, I think, hardy down to zone, let me figure it out. This is hardy down to zone 3. So this is super hardy, super durable, and very, very pokey. Significant, I think it's pokier than my other blue globe spruce, which means deer aren't going to eat it. So since we just talked about one blue spruce, let's talk about another, and this is Monty. You might have seen this plant before, because this is a very cool tree that seems to be making the rounds and quite popular, and for good reason. This is another member of their blues collection, and you can see again this really beautiful icy blue that we have in it, and it's size-wise, it's quite nice. In about 10 years, we're talking 8 feet tall by 6 feet wide. So it's a very nice garden-sized tree, if you ask me. It is hardy down to zone 4, so these blue spruces are really, really hardy. I must have been on a bit of a blue kick, and interestingly enough, you see here that I have actually several sort of weeping or low-growing forms, which is not something I've ever really been that into, to be honest, but I couldn't resist these. And this one is a basically like a ground cover. This is Picea pungens procumbens, and this is only going to get 2 feet wide but grow to 10 feet across, which is huge. So this is another blue spruce, and again, hardy down to zone 3 on this, but obviously this is a very different look. But I just loved this, and I thought it would be a really good addition. I'm into ground covers. Why not have evergreen ground covers? And to round out our blues, we've got Millbrook spruce. This is another blue spruce, but you can tell the blue is quite different from these other ones that we've been looking at. And this is another low growing form. This is 3 feet tall by 6 feet wide, hardy down to zone 3 again. Relatively slow growing, 3 to 6 inches a year. That's fairly slow growing. But this gets kind of a nice tiered habit over time. So that's what I liked about this, and that's how it's different from the other one that I just showed, procumbens. This one has this kind of nice tiered habit that makes for quite an interesting looking plant. Here we have a pair of Canadian hemlocks. Now, I planted my first Canadian hemlock 2 years ago in the driveway garden that we made between us and the neighbor, and I have just been absolutely loving that plant. It is so gorgeous, such beautiful form on it. I absolutely love the sort of soft needles that are on it. And the best thing about hemlock is that it's actually tolerant of at least part shade. You can actually push it into even more than that. So there are very few evergreens out there that are going to be happy in a shady spot. And you can do that with hemlock. Now, these are 2 different ones. This first one, the really cousin it looking guy here, is Cole's prostrate. And if you think I'm not going to accidentally call this thing Cole's prostate several times, you know, you don't know me. So you can tell very weeping form when you look in the top here. You can see that, you know, this is, you know, bent over big time. And they actually list the height of this as 6 inches. So you can tell that this is really well suited to growing on a wall or somewhere where it can kind of weep over something because it's, you know, there's no real height to it otherwise. And then we've got this one, and this is Jedloa. And Jedloa sort of forms more of a shrubby looking thing, 2 feet tall by 4 feet wide in X number of years. The thing with Canadian hemlocks is that they like well-drained soil, but they want constant moisture. So this is not a plant that's going to do well in in very dry soil. Certainly not in the beginning. It might be able to adapt to that over time, but it does have sort of specific soil needs that it wants. And so far, the one that I have has been going well, but I do actually give that one more supplemental water than other plants over there. Now this is a Japanese black pine called Thunderhead. And I was drawn to this plant for a number of reasons, including the cones, which look at the length of the cones on this, like 3 inches long. I have learned to appreciate details on plants that you have to get up close to see. And one of the things I really love on evergreens is some with interesting cones, and this is one of those. Now Thunderhead is going to get fairly big. I'll put it up on the screen. I think it's like, could be like 15 feet tall. But here's the thing, you can really decide what you want to do with this. This is a tree that is super well suited to Milwaukee, which is I think it technically means garden tree, but it's generally sort of come to be known as the Japanese style of pruning garden trees, sort of as giant bonsais is kind of one way to look at it. So you have all sorts of ability to prune this in interesting ways and do fun things with this. Whether I'll be doing that or not, I don't know. But I will be doing some pruning with it because I actually don't think I want it to get as big as it ultimately could. But it's very interesting. And I will tell you that these are spiky, spiky, spiky little guys. So I'm hoping that will help everything stay away from it. But it just is quite billowy, and you can see how this would lend itself well to some kind of interesting pruning. So this is, I don't know, I think I'm just gonna have a lot of fun with that plant. This little guy is Chamaecyparis pisciferia curly tops, and it is really kind of an oddity. And you know, I think these are the kind of things that you put in your garden as little focal points. Look at these little curly needles that it has. Quite odd looking, to be perfectly honest. I just think it's kind of unlike anything else you'll see, and it's certainly unlike anything else that I have in my garden. I am going to have to watch this one a little bit. One of the reasons I chose Chamaecyparis pisciferia is that I already have some of those because the soft serve false cypress that I have are also in that same species. They're also pisciferia, although they look much, much different. And those have proven to be quite deer resistant. I worry about things like Hinoki cypress, Chamaecyparis obtusa, things like that, because I don't know about the deer resistance on those. So I actually think one of the reasons I chose this was because I think there's a better chance that it will be deer resistant. This guy right here is American ginkgo, and I have wanted American ginkgo for ages. Now I have 2 other ginkgos in my yard. One of them is Gnome, which has gotten actually really quite big. I have the perfect spot for this plant. American is quite a dwarf little one. Now this tree back here, I am of course very excited about because this is a dogwood. This is Cornus cusa. That's the Japanese flowering dogwood. And this one is called Green Sleeves, which is supposed to be one of the really better ones that are out there. And you can see how budded up with flowers this one will definitely get protection when we get super cold, because I do not want to lose these flower buds. Now you can tell it looks quite sort of columnar right now, and that is kind of how dogwoods grow. They tend to grow up before they grow out, but generally speaking these are usually wider than they are tall, and that's one of the things I quite like about them. Now this one is, they say, 20 feet tall by 15 feet wide, so perhaps a little bit more upright than some other dogwoods. but still, you know, it's usually kind of a square. And that branching comes later with age. Then last but not least is winter sun mugo pine. And the common name is winter sun. The cultivar name, in quotes, is winter son, S-O-N-N-E. Not that it matters. The point on this is the color. So it has really beautiful yellow color. And this is a smaller. Mugo pines are quite adaptable to pruning. So, but this one has a really nice form. Good cones on it too, by the way. These needles are softer than over on the Thunderhead Japanese black pine, but it's really pretty. And of course, the whole point of this one is the color. And I chose this plant to go specifically with Monty Blue, because if you ask me, blue and gold together in a garden just brings out the best in both of them. So these will be planted in close proximity to one another. Okay, so those are the plants that I got from Iseli Nursery. I feel very fortunate to have received such beautiful plants from them. If you want plants, you guys, so if you want some of these really interesting plants you might not find anywhere else, there is a finder on Iseli's Nursery, so you can find garden centers near you and ask garden centers, because unlike some other plants, I'm pretty sure that garden centers can order, you know, one-offs, one of one thing from Iseli. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I kind of suspect that's the case. So you should talk to a garden center, because they're probably getting a load from Iseli. Now it might be too late for that, like for spring, but maybe fall or maybe next year. And then just ask them, tell them, you know, put it in on your order with them and call you when it comes in, because they should be able to do that. Unlike sometimes with perennials, you know, nurseries can't just buy one perennial, so they always have to bring in a bunch. So talk to your local garden center about it, because most better garden centers source a lot of their trees from Iseli. Now there is one more tree to show you, and this one did not come from Iseli. This one I bought from a local nursery, and wait until you see this thing. Look at this. Look at this thing. So first of all, no, I'm not digging the hole for this root ball, and I'm not planting this root ball. This is Seven Suns tree. This is Heptacodium. And this is going to replace the serviceberry on the corner of our patio garden. We will talk a lot about that. But Heptacodium is beautiful Seven Suns flower. I think I said that already. And you can see here, it's all wrapped up right now because we're keeping it tied up until it's planted, that it can grow quite shrubby. But you can also thin out these out to make this into more of a tree form. And a lot of people do that, and I will do that. So the thing with trees is that you don't really want to plant a tree and then immediately start pruning on it, because that often forces new growth, and you don't really want new top growth right away. What you want is you want this plant to spend its energy working on its roots. So I will clean out a small amount of this twiggy stuff that's down here, but for this year, this will remain with the stems that you see here. But I mean, I would say these take very well to that sort of pruning. I would say, you know, within 5 years, certainly, we should be able to have this down to what I would consider to be more of a tree form. Now, granted, it would have been better if this had been done when this was younger, but Heptacodiums take really, like I said, they take really well to pruning. So this is the species of Heptacodium. This is not one of the newer cultivars. Both Bailey Nursery and Proven Winners have cultivars of this. Proven Winners is called Temple of Bloom, and that's the smallest of them. I think that's maybe 6 feet tall, something like that. And then Tianshan is Bailey Nurseries, and that one gets, like, I think I want to say 8 to 10. This guy, I need something bigger, and this is going to get bigger. We're going to talk in 20 feet on this, and quite wide actually, although again, can be pruned, but we're talking 20 feet tall. And this one actually is 10 feet tall from top of the root ball to the top of this. It's 10 feet tall. And I did, of course, buy the biggest one that they had in their field because I don't want to wait. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm called the Impatient Gardener. But this is replacing an established tree on our landscape that is a really important foundational tree in this garden. It also provides a lot of screening for us, so I did not want to mess around with something smaller and waiting. So yes, I bought the biggest one they had. All right, so that is my little tree haul from yesterday. We rented the biggest U-Haul they had, and it was very big, and we didn't come close to filling it out, but this tree, once we popped this one in, really did take up a lot of room in there. So if you like this video, subscribe. It helps the channel, and that way you're going to make sure that you see what happens with all of these trees. So I would love to hear in the comments if one of these plants I showed you today is your favorite. Maybe not yet. Maybe you don't know. But if you got one, I want to hear about it. All right, have a great day in your garden. I'm just going to hang out and sit here on my root ball. See ya.